So it seems pretty surprising at this point that we are now in July of 2019 and Greg Hardy has already had 3 fights in the UFC. He had his first fight back in January. That fight, again, just as a reminder, he lost the first round. I would think you could probably make a good argument of that. Second round was a little bit more up in the air, and during that round, he landed an illegal knee and was DQ'd for it. Then came back against Dmitry Smolyakov, won that fight by knockout. In that fight, Smolyakov appeared to just have no desire to fight at all. After he got hit once, he just seemed to be looking for a way to get out of there and just kind of had a pathetic performance in the loss. And we have this fight here with Juan Adams, where after that fight, and I guess for a while, Juan Adams has been calling for this fight for a while, but especially after that fight, Juan Adams was saying, hey, look, I'll be the guy to beat Greg Hardy. I know a lot of you guys want to see it, so let me be the one to do it. And he didn't even really come that close to doing it. It was a pretty rough performance from him. I'm gonna go through the whole fight, just make a few stops here and there. Part of it just so I can break down what's going on, but then also part of it so I don't get copyright struck by the UFC, which may happen anyway. But let's hope for the best on that. So let's go through that, and then I'll talk about what this means as far as where Greg Hardy is at in his development, and just in a more general sense, how I feel that fans are handling Greg Hardy being in the UFC and now being on his third fight. So starting off here, they both come across the cage.
You wish for Greg Hardy is in black, Juan Adams is in gray.
So they both land jabs. What's interesting to me here is that with most guys who fight Greg Hardy's the one who's pushing them back. After Greg Hardy hits them, they're the ones who back up. In this case, Adams actually got Hardy to back up. So Hardy came into him into this corner. Adams lands the jab, and Hardy's now all of a sudden bouncing off, going back here. So Hardy's respecting the power of Adams. So you could say if you're Adams, and I think Adams, from what I've read, he has a wrestling background. Now you'd have a hard time believing that, seeing how the fight ended, but I guess from a game plan standpoint, he's thinking, hey, we can trade a little bit on the feet just to get some respect, but then end up taking the fight to the ground. But it's worth mentioning that he did have some decent moments, I guess. It's not like there were any great moments, but he had a decent moment like this on the feet and decided that he would rather go the grappling route, and that obviously didn't work out for him. So they had traded jabs before. So again, they're trading jabs. Again, trading jabs. Really not too eager to get in tight. Part of the reason why is that both of these guys hit extremely hard, and this is the start of the fight. So if you start getting in range and planting your feet and trying to throw extended combinations, you're also leaving yourself open to get countered. And I don't think either of these guys were too comfortable about it. But one of the things to notice with Greg Hardy is that his punches still look kind of stiff as they had in the past fights, and he still leaves his hands down fairly often, which is a dangerous thing to do at heavyweight. This time lead hook. Again, just a bunch of single shots from Greg Hardy. And this was one of the things I was pointing out in his first fight in the little breakdown I did with the Alan Crowder fight, that he was throwing a lot of single shots. And that's not exactly the best way to go about striking. It looks like he's still doing a lot of that even now. But granted, like I mentioned before, he started in the UFC only about 7 months ago. So to expect just drastic improvements at this point is a little bit unrealistic. Again, single shot towards the body. Single shot lead hook, and this is where the fight begins to go wrong for Adams. So now Adams looks to come in and try to take him down with a single leg, but doesn't really have his balance about him. Hardy does have a whizzer, but from a technical standpoint, I think it's worth mentioning sometimes when guys are really strong, when you're watching them and you're not actually in there grappling against them, it looks like what they're doing isn't all that fancy, but when you feel the strength, there's a difference there. And it is worth noting that Juan Adams, you could say he melted in this fight. You could say Smolyakov melted. I think part of that means that there really is something to Greg Hardy being as strong as he is. So even though the technique doesn't look that good when you're watching it, having that strength sometimes makes up for it, especially against some of the lesser skilled fighters. And in this case, it really made up for it. So it gets the whizzer. But what's interesting here is that you would expect Adams to get on all fours from here rather than just trying to stay on his side. Or if he's going to stay on his side, then you like scoop this, take his top leg, scoop this leg of Greg Hardy, and then try to come up on a single from half guard. He really didn't do either. He didn't try to come up on a single just from like a dogfight position, but he didn't like go half guard first either, which was kind of odd. So he's just holding on. Hardy's just landing punches. Ref's trying to say, watch the back of the head. He's not hitting the back of the head. You can tell by the angle. He's kind of like snapping it down like into the side of the head. So punches look legal from here. More punches. But again, Adams is doing nothing. From here, you want to be shifting your weight, shifting your hips over to the side here. Hardy, it's not a very deep whizzer here. Like you can wrestle through this position. Hardy's not doing a whole lot defensively other than just trying to like hold position. He really isn't even sprawled out that far either. It's not like his hips are being sprawled out that hard backwards. But Adams is just hanging onto his leg here, and though he was angry at the end of the fight, you can't say that it was an early stoppage because he was doing nothing here. He was just sitting here and taking the shots. He wasn't improving his position. And for a guy who should know how to wrestle, even if you aren't a great wrestler, you should know where to go to improve your position from here. And he's not doing anything to improve his position. So Hardy's just going to keep punching. Again, Adams is going nowhere. Like, he's not driving into him. He's not cutting an angle. He's not. I mean, he's not even like going back into a guard here if he doesn't feel like he can get a takedown. He's just sitting there, taking a bunch of punches over and over to the left side of his head. At this point, the ref's like, look, man, you got to do something. Like, show me something here. Like, this is Mergliotta saying, hey, you got to protect yourself at all times. You're not protecting yourself right now. Show me something. I don't want to have to stop this fight, but if you're not going to move, I'm going to have to. Doesn't move. Still doesn't move. He has to stop the fight. So I don't have an issue with the stoppage there. As far as what I think about Greg Hardy's skill set, I think it's pretty clear from this point. You can say that he's extremely strong. He's a very strong heavyweight. It's not just that he's at the upper weight limit of the division, but he's also very strong at that weight. There are other guys who fight around his weight, around the 266 mark, but it doesn't seem that common for someone to just completely overpower someone like this. In a way, it's sort of reminiscent of Ngannou in the way that he overpowers people, but I think Ngannou's a better fighter. So at this point, for Greg Hardy, people are talking about putting him against Walt Harris. From one standpoint of just wanting to see Greg Hardy go against someone good, I get that. But from another standpoint, I think Walt Harris is like 36 right now, and he deserves a better fighter than Greg Hardy in his next fight. So it wouldn't be fair to Walt Harris to put him up against Greg Hardy. Even if he wins and knocks him out in like a minute, I just don't think that's the right move for Walt Harris. So unless Harris is like, hey, I just knocked out Oleinik in 11 seconds, I'm perfectly fine. Let's just do this in a quick turnaround and get it over with. I guess if Harris wants it, he can ask for it, but I don't think it's a fight that makes a whole lot of sense for him given where he's at in his career. But for Greg Hardy, from a grappling standpoint, we really didn't see much here to say that his technique's really all that improved or that he was doing anything that special technically to put Adams in this position. On the feet, he's still throwing a lot of single shots, still keeps his hands down, still is in a position where he can get hit. Seemed to not be terribly happy about that first jab that Adams landed. So what this says about his chin, I don't know. But from here, I think you got to keep moving Greg Hardy along. Give him another guy who's unranked. Just let him keep building himself and let him keep proving that he deserves to be in there with a ranked guy. I don't know that I really believe that yet. Yes, he's got 2 wins in a row. Yes, they were both very quick. Yes, they were in the first round, but I'm not seeing enough technically for me to really believe that he's ready for the top 15 just yet. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is just how fans are handling him. I understand why fans do not like Greg Hardy. I don't blame anyone for not liking him. For him to be in the legal situation he was with the domestic violence, I believe that he initially was found guilty, but then at a further trial, his wife or girlfriend at the time didn't show up, so they weren't able to pursue the charges. There are a couple ways to look at it. One way is like, look, the law had their say with him. His NFL career was destroyed. Like, he's been punished enough. We don't need to keep punishing him. I think there's a fair statement to be made there. That at least like on the legal side, everything's sort of handled as it is. But that doesn't mean as a fan you have to cheer for him. But that being said, this is his third fight in the UFC, and everyone knows who he is and what his backstory is. So at this point, for people to just keep bringing it up over and over just for what seems to be brownie points, it can be kind of annoying. So in a bit of a trolling manner on Twitter, I just highlighted a few people who were getting a lot of retweets on their anti-Greg Hardy tweets. So you had Zombie Prophet saying the Greg Hardy debate brings up the scum. I feel disgusted reading some of the tweets from his supporters. I wonder how they would feel if they would let Hardy punch their mom or sisters. I don't know that Hardy has supporters so much as people who are just like, hey, look, enough's enough. Like, we don't need to keep hearing about this. This person's like, in case you forgot, fuck Greg Hardy. So again, Greg Hardy's fighting, hey guys, look at me. I don't support domestic violence. Aren't I cool? You have Robin Black, who on Twitter, his whole Twitter persona has pretty much just been about positive, positive, positive. So for him to be like, I don't have a positive reaction to the particular gentleman in the cage, even he's like, hey guys, look at me. I don't like Greg Hardy. I don't like that guy who committed domestic violence. That's good, right? Right, guys? And then another one here, Dave Doyle, quick reminder here, since too many people are playing along with the obvious recent push to whitewash. So he posted a story about the initial assault. So as far as that goes, look, we understand. We get it. What he did was wrong. You don't have to like him. This is his third fight. If every single time he fights, you're going to have to tell everyone, hey, guys, look at me. I don't like Greg Hardy because he committed domestic violence. You're just becoming annoying at this point. Like, we get it. We get that what he did was wrong. I don't blame you if you don't like him still, but if you need to let everyone know you don't support domestic violence, woohoo, good for you. No one else does either.